Goes for half pot. Half pot is very weird. He's basically saying he has ace 4. Oh. I think versus the line that he took, I think we suddenly have an okay blocker with the 4. Wouldn't be surprised if he just shows up with queen 10 here or something. King 10. Yeah, that story didn't really check out in my opinion. I have some big news, my fellow ambitious poker players, because the doors to our Mechanics of Poker program are closing. They are closing because behind the scenes we have been working hard on the 2.0 version of the mechanics, which next to more content also will include more personal attention and a more exclusive community, which means that we will only take on a small group of players who fit the profile. This means that right now is your last chance to guarantee a seat in one of the most complete poker coaching programs out there, which will help you break free from low to mid stakes and help you reach high stakes poker games. Throughout the month of July, we are running our first and most likely last promotion ever, a 25% off closing sale on the Mechanics of Poker program. And if you enroll now, you will get lifetime access to all the updates, including all the goodness that is coming up in the Mechanics of Poker 2.0. So grab this opportunity before the doors are closed and let us help you realize your poker goals. Go over to pokerambition.com to enroll. Hi there, ladies and gents. Welcome back to another play and explain video. This time 200 NL, 500 NL keeps on letting me down, not running. Every time when I wanted to record, I got tired of it. I was like, okay, fuck it, 200 NL it is. I think from my educational perspective, it shouldn't make much of a difference anyway. A quick announcement before we start, because in the month of July, we will have a little promotion running at pokerambition.com because the Mechanics of Poker program is going behind closed doors. We're closing the program. I know, sad faces, but no worries. This month is the last month that you can guarantee a seat in our program. After that, we're going to be continuing with the Mechanics of Poker 2.0, in which we will have more content, more personal attention, a more exclusive community, because you will have to apply to the program and we will only pick specific players that fit a specific profile, okay? If you enroll now though, you will get guaranteed access to the mechanics. You will get guaranteed access to all future updates, including all the goodness that comes with the Mechanics of Poker 2.0 program. So take advantage of the 25% off this month. Without further ado, let's get into the action. I should probably have said as well, go over to pokerambition.com to enroll and make advantage of this promotion. The pool. Let me see. Pool. Do I know people? Mr. Goosey in the house. Goosey, never Lucy is present. We got Vit90. I've played with him before. And decides to come out for a 3-bet straight away. I think knight unsuited. We have an easy call. And that's a beautiful flop. Let's see what he does. He goes for a snap. 1/3 c-bet. It's actually a spot where, in theory, I think you want to approach it a little bit more big bet check. That's personally how I approach it. Obviously, you know, you can still also bet small. That's perfectly fine as well. This hand is close. Let's open for the sake of the video. Turn is interesting. Our hand is not great in terms of blockers, because we block a lot of the hands that are going to fall to a bet, especially if we bet big. However, if we bet small, I think he's probably still going to continue with some flush draws. So I think that's fine. Also, I think if he did c-bet a bit too often on this board, I think just following it up with a small bet is probably going to be good. On the river, I think just unblocking all the sets, straights, 2 pairs, etc. We just want to be jamming. So that's what I'm going to do. Not too much thinking going on there. And he folds. Here, when check, we don't block the 6-8 suited. We do block a king 6 suited. Let's say we had the 8 of hearts or something. We could probably consider calling. An 8 in general, though, is quite a good card because 7-8, 8-10, 5-8 and stuff are definitely hands that he could be betting on the turn with. So I would say having the 8 of hearts or having the 8 of, what was the other one? The club. I think it's actually an okay spot to call. I think it's quite close. And when things are close, your blockers start to really matter. I do think in general, people kind of over fetish on blockers. In some spots, it's very important, and other spots, it's a bit less important. And I think a common mistake is that people rate the weight that they put on their blockers and unblockers for making their decision is the same in a lot of spots where I think, where in theory, you know, this is definitely true. But I think in practice, the weights that you should give on it should vary. Here, we're going to go for a check raise with the bottom pair backdoor flush draw. I think it's a fine play. If we can get a hand like 8-9 of clubs to fold, that's actually quite a good result. Here we face a barrel with the ace-jack. I think we have an easy call again. The 4-6. 4-6 is pretty interesting in terms of what we should do. Not 100% sure. I think I'm going to go for a block. The 3 here is actually quite a bad card, 4-5 completing, so that's not great. And now on the river, the jack isn't that great. Jack isn't that great. I think I wanna. What do I want to do with this hand? Here we face a barrel. We would probably prefer to have a spade calling because he's probably going to give up a missed flush draw. So I would prefer to have the jack of spades. That's one. Jack 10 is definitely a hand that he can be barreling with. Blocking my ace jack and ace 10. However, I think he could maybe still bet ace jack himself, even though it's probably close. The 3 really sucks. Really sucks. Yeah, this spot feels a little bit close. Not really sure what I prefer to have. Probably ace 5, ace 4. And here we have a fold on the river. Very interesting hand, I would say. Very interesting hand. I think on the turn, our hand is actually a fine bet. We can even check some rivers and sometimes win versus ace queen or ace jack. However, on a jack river, that's kind of out of the window. And I think if you look at the hands that we want to be betting, I went for the overbet. I figured, you know, we block a set and a set is going to call the sizing that I bet. I didn't go too big because I think if we have bottom set, you know, he will still have the advantage. King 10 off, king jack off type of holdings. So that's why I didn't go too crazy there. Here, that's from small blind. I think he's more of a recreational player. I'm going to go for a small overbet. I'm going to call here with the ace 5. 5-6 off is definitely in his range, so we should definitely take it easier on this turn. But with ace 5 kind of sucks. First an overbet. The problem is he could sometimes do this with maybe like ace 3 or something, or a 3 or a 4, and that really sucks. But I do still think we should probably call this. But I'm a little bit afraid that he now shows a 3 or something. That would really suck. We don't have a club. But also I don't think that really matters a lot. Only I guess if we river the ace of clubs, that could be trouble. But the 5 of clubs doesn't really matter. He jams, we have an easy fold. Okay, interesting spots. Interesting spots. We will take a little dive deeper into some of the hands afterwards to see how our reasoning was. And I think this is something that you should always be doing while playing. But, you know, we got into some interesting spots straight away. So that's good, because that's what you want to see when you're recording a YouTube video. So I'm gonna try to now let go of all the hands we played, because we already had a lot of close decisions. And what you usually don't want to do is keep wandering on past played hands while playing new hands, because then, let's say, I always see it as this. Your brain, when you play a hand, let's say you have 100% brain capacity to think about the hand, but if 10% of that brain capacity is used to still think about the previous hand, yeah, that's a waste, right? So usually what I do is I'll mark the hands, and as soon as I mark them, for me, they're sort of done. I will look at them afterwards. Now, obviously, when you're making a play and explain video, it's a bit more difficult, because you're trying to explain certain hands and talk about certain hands, even though new hands have already been played. But this is just a general piece of advice. Pocket deuces, easy call. Jack queen. 2 regulars behind. I think if the cutoff opens, could consider just calling. If this guy opens, I think I'll 3-bet. And if we get 3-bet ourselves, we have an easy call. Now flop a royal flush. That's not a royal flush. Okay, chooses a more polarized approach. Or at least a sort of polarized approach. I'm personally not a big fan of a half pot strategy on this board. I don't really think it achieves that much necessarily. So, okay, turn we have an easy fold. I want to say if he now checks to us, I think we have a good bet, because I don't think queens and jacks make it to this flop sizing that he used. And ace jack, ace queen could. So on the turn, we are definitely blocking some of the stronger hands in his range. But I think on that board, I prefer either bet bigger and check, or bet very small and check. But the half pot for me, I mean, in the end, you can make a strategy around any type of sizing. But for me, the half pot doesn't really do it. Ace 10, I think, just a bit too good to bet, and just going to check fold. 5-4 suited, I'm gonna go for the 3-bet. Probably not folding to a 4-bet unless he makes it like 26 big blinds or something. Interesting flop. We can go either, we can do various things here. We can do various things here. I'll go for a check raise. You can bet big, you can bet small, you can check raise. You can do whatever the fuck you want. Let's say with ace 5, I would definitely prefer the check. The check raise. 5-4, I guess I prefer betting a little bit more. For example, I feel a bit more... I'm a bit happier now in check with ace 5 than with 5-4, basically. Ace jack. This spot we could approach in various ways. I'm gonna go for a check. Now we face a delayed bet. And this is very close already. It's very close. But I think I'm going to call one. Interesting river. Interesting river. I'm gonna check fold the flop first, a big bet. I think a lot of his bluffs on 9-5 deuce are gonna be, for example, 10 jack. I would much rather call ace king than ace jack. In a river, it's quite interesting. Goes for half pot. Half pot is very weird. He's basically saying he has ace 4. Oh. I think versus the line that he took, I think we suddenly have an okay blocker with the 4. Wouldn't be surprised if he just shows up with queen 10 here or something. King 10. You're simply the best. Better than Yeah, that story didn't really check out in my opinion. And like I said, I mean, he sold a good story. He sold like, oh, it's 4 suited, but unfortunately for him, we had the 4. So given the sizing and line he took, our blockers played. Let's say he jammed, he doesn't have ace-4. So then our blockers are sort of useless, but still then we would be unblocking a lot of bluffs because he doesn't really have a bluff with a 4 in it. But yeah, interesting hand. I think if we would have c-bet the flop, not really sure what I would have done in the turn, probably check fold. So I guess as played, it turned out good for us. Not really sure if we maybe do some donking there on the ace. A part of my repertoire, you could say, on the turn when I called there was definitely I was considering donking like some spades.
You fucking donk! You do it again. I remember in a video before I've told you to not donk.
And I think our improves are quite clean with the 5 and the 4. Don't think that would scare his Jack Queen suited or something, King Jack suited. Queen 10 off. Could actually 3-bet at a low frequency. Usually with some of these offsuit hands you can do that. Back to royal flush draw. He goes for min-bet. I like the strategy. Let's say I had a lower pair or something with a club, I might check raise, but I think this hand just wants to call. Our kicker does play, which makes me lead a bit more towards betting. So that's actually what I'm gonna do. So if our kicker, let's say we had, I think 10-5 is probably your best example of a check. He goes for the raise.
By betting small, I sort of open myself up to this.
Having the queen of club is good. Having the 10 is a bit whatever. A queen in general I think is okay. But I think I'm going to fold. Actually, our time bank's running out here. Let's refresh our time bank. I think it's just a good run out for me. I would have already folded quite a lot of my air on the flop, and on the river I just am very made hand heavy. Like I said, I would have probably checked lower 10x. So yeah. Don't think we have to be too concerned there. And we can just call like a rivered king jack or queen jack is already better. Ace queen suited. Probably if we 4-bet, it's going to be a 4-bet call. We could probably do it some of the time. Or else we call. Ace queen off, we can definitely 4-bet and then fold. So I think I'm just going to go for a 4-bet call. And this works again. King, queen. Go for easy check on the flop. Pocket ace, we have an easy open. Even versus half pot, I think king, queen with a heart. Definitely still a call. Pocket eights. Not really sure if a king is leadable. Leadable. Is that a word? Pocket eight is a bit close. I went for the check, but sometimes you'll see this hand already being bluffed. The 10 is a very bad card, but I do think we should be betting. a hand as strong as our hand. Just try to get value from a 9. Or pocket 6s. Why not? I mean, I guess pocket 6s, block 6-7 suited. And unblocks like ace-jack or something that I could be bluffing with. So I think actually it's a fine call. 7-8. We can do a little bit of everything. Let's go for a call. King 6. Probably on 200 and I'll rake. We're never calling this. And just folding, I think, is fine. 7-8. He bets. I'm gonna try a little raise. Little raise daisy.
Fuck in my pot, boy. Fuck in my pot. Get the fuck out of my pot. Thank you very much.
And he folds. Alpha dog, probably also recreational. I don't see him reloading. Pocket 10s, let's go for the 3-bet. Pocket aces on a wheel board with the diamond. Pocket 10s here. I don't know if this guy is a recreational. I think we should play it fast. If not, I do think we should be a little bit careful. Because we're in very tight positions, I don't think we should be overrating 10s. I think 10s without a heart is definitely checking. This 10s could also just bet once. Or a small sizing, hoping to fold out king jack or something. And it kind of also depends if you think... Like, I'm not really sure who this guy is, then I prefer checking a bit more because he could be recreational. And then I think, in general, they're a bit more stabby. So then we get some value out of bluffs if we check. I'm not really sure. And I think now we have a pretty clear bet. Here versus half pot. I think we should raise the river, but it's a bit close. He snap calls with a straight. Okay, then maybe a river raise. It's probably close. Again, it's the half pot. Maybe this is a 200 and I'll zoom thing. That people just, you know, they saw, oh, there's some small betting, some big betting. Let's just bet half pot. Then you're really missing the point, in my opinion. Again, I think it's a turn where I or at least in my philosophy, how I approach poker, also how I explain poker, for example, in mechanics. Usually you want to have a big sizing and a small sizing. Because basically with those things you can achieve, like some hands, if you have a medium hand, weak to medium hand, you just bet small. If you have a very strong hand, you bet big. Yeah, that makes way more sense from a generating EV perspective compared to betting half. I think half, you're kind of missing the point. But hey, went for the 4-bet here. Queen 10 suited. I think I'll overcall with another recreational on the big blind and try to flop something beautiful 4-way. That seems like an okay strategy. Would also be convinced that squeezing is okay. He calls. No. I'll just start off with quarter. I want to actually bet a little bit bigger with this hand. I want to bet... Why are you not listening? I want to bet 35% pot. Queen 10, I'm just going to fold straight away. If I had backdoors, I would call. So I think Queen 10 of diamonds is basically the one that I fold. He calls. We have very bad suits. We would much rather have spades, so blocking the king 10 of spades, for example, 9 10 of spades. So this hand has no business on the turn. At least here we're gonna open to 22. I'm just gonna fold with the pocket eights. I do think our hand can make it in a bet check bet line. Mainly not blocking ace queen and ace jack. I don't think he has ace king. He could have pocket nines. So I think this hand probably makes it into a jam on the river.
I think it's just time to ship it in and go to bed.
Obviously, this also kind of depends. If you think he's going to call ace jack, then maybe king jack is better. But I think, you know,
incredibly strong and aggressive play.
Blocking nines and not blocking the floats that are going to fold the river, except for maybe king, queen of hearts. But I was trying to upsize the flop a little bit to make him fold king, queen of spades, for example, king, jack of spades. I'm not really sure if 35 doesn't... I felt half pot felt a bit too big. And 25 felt too small. But that's why I landed on 35. But I guess, you know, if you want to be picky, 40, I think 40% would have been a little bit better. Queen 5. All right, I'll let that one go, my friend. I'll let that one go. I'm going to do something that I said we shouldn't be doing, but to go back to the 3-6 suited hand where we had aces. Usually, if you have a straight, you usually want to just use some bigger sizings there. Unless you think I'm going to be spaz raising a lot. I don't think we can call our hand a spaz raise though, but get the point. This hand we could probably squeeze. Preferably more offsuit hands, but I'm trying to squeeze a little bit more. I think this hand can make it. King 9 can do a little bit of everything. Let's go for an overbet. Won't have too much overbets on this board, but I think King 9 is a fine hand to do that with. Because it's a hand that if we bet 1/3 and gets check raised, it cannot really call. I mean, it cannot call now either, right? The check raised. But if you overbet, it's going to happen less often. Whereas if you bet 1/3 and he check raises, let's say at King 9 suited with backdoors, you could possibly bet call with a 1/3 after a 1/3 sizing. So then I think betting 1/3 already becomes a bit more attractive. And let's say at King 6 suited there or something, I think just betting 1/3 is fine. And if he check raises, then you give him the 2 thumbs up and you muck your hand. And I think if your hand is a little bit better, let's say you have ace 9, I think it's a fine check. So yeah, then you should always try to think about, okay, what's your range? And like some weaker kings clearly just want to bet 1/3 and fold. Some stronger kings, maybe king queen. I think king queen can bet 1/3 and call. This is under the same model. And now we actually do have an offsuit hand. It's actually Sam who calls. Oh, everyone. Everyone calls. Jesus, guys, come on. Just bet, I guess. Bet and hope. Bet and pray that the guy doesn't have a set or something. I don't know. The guy jams. I don't know who this guy is. Feels like queens, but I guess he could have the same hands. Unknown. Maybe has king jack suited. Who knows? Or jack 8 offsuit. That's Stephanie. That was the other hand that I was gonna say after king jack suited. Wait, I think I now labeled someone else a fish. Yes. I don't think you're a recreational. Okay, then we were just clearly squeezing for value. I mean, squeezing, you cannot really use the words value or bluff. It's you know, as you're just going a bit more linear. Sam T, are you still in the pool, Sam T? Because you deserve a little techie, mate. Where are you from? Mate was appropriate. He's from the UK, mate. No. It was the Jack 8. The Jack 8 was it, and then he left. Actually, for the people who play 100 NL and want to shot 200 NL, right now is a good pool to do it on. The pool started really small when I started out, but now everyone came to play. Let's try a little step ski with the Jack 5. I see there's some things happening. There's some things happening. Queen 3 suited. Definitely open with a recreation on the big blind. This board you can approach in a couple of ways. I prefer checking and big betting, usually versus recreationals. And then this hand definitely makes it into the check. I'll go for the caller with ace-8 suited with a recreation on the big blind. Do we face a bet? I think just raising is probably good. And like this. We're unblocking the king. We can make him fold some equity with like Jack 9 or something. Not that Jack 9 has a lot of equity, and it kind of depends on how often you think he's going to bluff the river. The more often you think he's going to bluff the river with those hands, the more we should call. And the less aggressive he's going to be on the river, I think the more we should definitely just raise. Yeah, the pool has been very good. Six, 7 suited. Pretty hand. Let's go for a 3-bet. So this is actually one of the type of boards, like the low disconnected, that I do think half pot range makes a lot of sense. But the other board where we saw the other guy do it on, just gonna call with the ace-5 because he's short and there's a recreational behind. The other board I think was ace-10-5 two-tone. There I don't like it, but on a low board I think betting half pot there has benefits. When the board becomes a little bit more connected, I then prefer to probably split again between big bet and check. Big bet and small bet, and maybe even check. I think here with the ace-5. This guy is still behind. This is clearly a blue line versus red line decision. And I think we have to call the turn, but I'm not too thrilled about it. Kind of depends what he does with king, queen. And with some worse flush draws. But I think we're going to call. Versus that hand we cannot call, specifically. He cashed out, okay. Better safe than sorry. 9-8-4 two-tone. I think I'm going to bet 3/4 to pot. Potting still appropriate. Somewhere between these two sizings I think is fine. Pocket 8s. Let's just go for a 3-bet. I don't think there's much turns that we can fold on. I think the queen and the king are the turns that we can fold on. Obviously, you can just raise the flop and, yeah, get it in. That's perfectly fine. The only downside is The small is also recreational. It's probably very suited heavy. So let's say we raise and he has queen 6 of diamonds. He's probably just folding. But this is why I said if we call, we're going to win a big pot at showdown more often. And if we raise, we're going to win a smaller pot without showdown more often. So clearly a red line versus blue line, difference in approach. You can, but either player is going to be plus a fee. Like I said, the only downside of maybe just calling is that there's a king and a queen turn on which we are not going to realize our equity that often if he's going to jam. Versus a min raise, I'll call 10-8. Especially versus a recreational. You could say, yeah, he's from the cutoff or from the MP, but in general, recreationals, they are less positional aware. They just have a certain range of hands that they want to play. You can see this in basically all positions. They play sort of the same range. And it doesn't also, in terms of sizing, it also doesn't really matter that often if we raise min raise 2x or 3x. They just have a certain amount of hands that they want to play. So he raises from the cutoff, but it could be the same range as on the button or under the gun. So position matters a bit less. I usually always, when I play against a fish, in my head, it's always big blind, button, big blind. And look at that. We were actually ahead on the flop. I have some big news, my fellow ambitious poker players, because the doors to our Mechanics of Poker program are closing. They are closing because behind the scenes we have been working hard on the 2.0 version of the mechanics, which next to more content also will include more personal attention and a more exclusive community, which means that we will only take on a small group of players who fit the profile. This means that right now is your last chance to guarantee a seat in one of the most complete poker coaching programs out there, which will help you break free from low to mid stakes and help you reach high stakes poker games. Throughout the month of July, we are running our first and most likely last promotion ever, a 25% off closing sale on the Mechanics of Poker program. And if you enroll now, you will get lifetime access to all the updates, including all the goodness that is coming up in the Mechanics of Poker 2.0. So grab this opportunity before the doors are closed and let us help you realize your poker goals. Go over to pokerambition.com to enroll. 3-bet ski here with the pocket queens. We are pretty deep. He goes for 4-bet. Okay, well, let's win a 6 on the BB pot with the set of queens. That's our current strategy. So his 4-betting range should be quite ace-x suited heavy. Ace-4 suited, definitely a hand that could be in there. Starts with a 1/3, which I think even this deep, you could just bet off. I think we have an easy call. Turn ace is very bad. I think his 4-betting range, when out of position here, is going to contain a lot of ace-x suited. Also, me in position is going to call a lot with ace-king. So actually, I think on the turn, pocket queens, especially with a diamond, it's just a fold. Let's say we had 8-7 suited or something. I think it's a way better call because then he has more king-queen suited type of holdings that he could bluff with. So yeah. Also, I think queens without a diamond is already a way better PO than queens with a diamond. But yeah, this deep, I think the ace turn just hits him so hard that it's very easy for him to run out of bluffs. And then, like I said, then I guess the second option of hands that he could choose are going to be the king-queen suited. And well, we have two queens, including the queen of diamonds, so I think easy fold. Ace-10 with a heart, I think an easy spot to bet 1/3. I'm gonna fold the king-10 suited. Just 3 on the big blinds deep. Let's say I had ace-8 suited there, I would definitely call, but I think this is a fine spot to fold. Queen-10 suited, we could sometimes 4-bet. Let's let that sometimes be known. Goosey, never Lucy. Good play by him. Check min raise. Queen 10 suited. I think is not gonna make it in the call. And as you can see, goosey never Lucy. Ace 5. I think we're just gonna check fold the turn. After betting half pot on the flop. On this very dry, disconnected board. I would definitely barrel hands like King Jack, King 10. I think those hands are fine barrels. River's the ace. That's very interesting. The question is, should we check call or bet? We have a 5. I think that leads us to do a bit more checking. Then let's say, for example, we had ace 10 or ace jack. I think we want to do a bit more betting, but now he could have floated King Jack or King 10 of hearts and bluffed it now on the river. So I think the side card here definitely matters. Also, if we check, he could turn 7s into a bluff. Yeah, luckily we didn't have ace jack because I would have been likely to bet that myself. And then he would have probably just folded pocket 7s. No clue who this guy is. I'll start the call. Jacks, 3-bet getting it in. Definitely going to continue here with our set draw. Here, say normally, we could do actually a couple things. I'm actually just gonna go for a very small bet. I think definitely recreationals are gonna overcall the flop here with pocket 8s, for example. And he will have more king queen off in his range, so protection is a little bit more important. Here, I think on the turn we actually have a fine hand to bet. Given that I would have already raised 4s and 5s with a club on the flop some of the time, I think 6s with a club, you know, it's kind of what is left. He bets the river. This kind of sucks. I guess we just hoped him to check. Renee, if your game is based on hope, you have to reevaluate. Yeah, I think I'm just going to fold. I think, like I said, he can have more king queen off. He also has more ace 10 off. I just don't really think it's a spot where I'm going to see a lot of bluffs. Flop a little gutty with the 7-10. It's a spot where I could sometimes cold call. He has 60 big blinds. If he had a little bit more money, I might have considered a cold call. Here on the turn, I don't think we're going to step 7-10. It's only a gutter in a spot where we have also some open-enders with the 5-7, the 7-8. So we have a lot of better draws in our range, so I think we're just going to check fold. This one, we could sometimes 3-bet. Let's go for it this time. He calls King 5 rainbow. It's actually a very good board for me. The 10 and the 8 aren't great, but I think we can just still 3-bet 1/3. Because they block a lot of the hands that he could call and then fold. Ace 8 suited, King 8. Oh, King 8 suited actually we block, so that's quite good. Queen 10 suited, Jack 10 suited type of holdings. King Queen. Close. Sometimes check, sometimes bet. I think the 10-8, we're not blocking King 10 suited. Just gonna check, hope to river an 8 or something. We did. So having a 10 of hearts here and the 8 of spades, for example, is a way better hand for various reasons. He bets actually quite big. That's interesting. Why would he bet so big? It's a queen wacko. To bet so big. Why would you bet so big? Why so big? So big. Very nitty fold. Very nitty fold. Don't like the 10 of diamonds. Interesting, a big sizing there. Queen Jack suited. I guess that would have made sense for a big sizing. Okay, let's reevaluate some of the hands that we played and we call it a day. Shall we? Another chance to flop a royal flush. What are the odds of flopping a royal flush? No clue. But I'll accept the jack. I'll accept the jack. He bets half pot first half pot and don't think I'm gonna play much raises. Now this is again is a board where I think half pot is an acceptable strategy. Still not necessarily my preference. No, on this board I think bit whatever. Easy jam on the turn with ace jack. Okay, first hand was that ace jack where we were debating on the river. Let's look at his turn betting range first. Not a lot of unintuitive stuff except for the 10-9, jack-9 off. That's mixing in even without a spade. I think with a spade that makes sense. And I guess the most unintuitive things are like 7-6 of clubs, which mainly barrel because we float more hearts, diamonds, and spades that we're going to fold the turn. So if you have 7-6 of clubs, you're blocking the queen 7 suited, the queen 6 suited, and you're unblocking a hand like king 8 of diamonds and king 8 of hearts that's now going to fold. So that's why 6-7 of clubs is actually a fine barrel. I think for the rest it looked quite intuitive. On the river, you see that he will continue to bluff. Here we can see, for example, the jack of spades that's giving up. So this is why in game I wanted to have the spade, ace jack of spade. You can also see here if he has just jack 6 of spades, he's going to give up. Whereas if he has jack 6 of clubs, he's going to barrel. So that was something that I had in my mind, which I think is good. Let me see ace jack. We see that actually it doesn't really matter. That's quite interesting because it was indeed giving up the spade. So I was going to call ace jack with a spade and decide to fold the rest, which I think, and then ace 5 and ace 4. Ace 5 clearly a better hand. And same for ace 4. So calling ace 5, ace 4, and ace jack with a spade, I think in practice is actually a fine strategy. We should find some random calls with king 10 high. This is mainly because it does a very good job blocking the value range with queen 10 and king queen and ace king, I imagine. Ace king still betting? No, ace king is actually checking. But I think my fold there is fine. Then we had this 4-6 hand. We went for the check raise on the flop, which, as we can see here, is 6-4 of clubs. Wants to raise the majority of the time. Sizing is somewhere between half pot and pot. We went for 3/4, so you could say that we sort of nailed that. Let's say we check raise. Turn is a king. We can see that actually there were a bit more big bets than I would have imagined. 6-4 of clubs actually mainly gives up. The reason why I barreled was simply because we're unblocking the queen jacks, the ace jacks, the ace queens. He can fold a hand like pocket ace, can sometimes call a hand like ace queen at diamonds. So there's some mergy effects going on. We keep the initiative. Honestly, I don't think it's necessarily such a horrible play. If we have a low flush, actually, I imagine if we have a low flush, like 5-6 of diamonds, actually, we might sometimes want to check. 5-6 of diamonds, full check. That makes sense. And a king, we're more likely to bet because a king can still improve, and 5-6 of diamonds can't. That's kind of the main reason. The 4-6, it does get in there in a bet some of the time. It prefers to have the spades and the hearts, mainly because then we're actually doing a job. Oh, wait. We're looking, I think, at the wrong one. No. Then it actually does a job of blocking king 4 suited. So the block is still fine. Then on the river, call, river. Oh, wait. I was looking at the wrong place for the turn. Yeah, here we can see it. 4-6 spades, 4-6 of hearts, definitely betting. 4-6 of clubs, usually preferring checking. Probably if you let this run until the end, it probably just checks. So not GTO, but I don't think necessarily that bad. Then as played on the river, we can see actually that we don't have big sizings, and I think this is definitely where I make a mistake. I didn't want to bet too big. That was definitely something that I had in my mind, and then I went for 125. Because I figured I could put a flush in quite a tough spot, a bear king in quite a tough spot, and we're blocking pocket fours. That was basically my argument. I guess it already puts a king in a tough spot with a 1/3 sizing. King 5, for example, is folding. King 9 is sometimes folding. But yeah, the small bet is mainly so we can still induce bluff raises, which I guess with 4-6 isn't that great. So maybe in a vacuum, 4-6 picked the right sizing. From an overall strategy, it's probably not that great. There aren't a lot of hands that want to bet this sizing, I would say, except for maybe pocket fours that just wants to. But even pocket fours probably just wants to bet small and induce. So there's no hand that wants to bet this sizing, except for 4-6 of clubs as a bluff. Okay. The problem, so this all sounds cool. You might say like, okay, well then it's a good play. But the problem is, if something never happens in theory, good players can definitely read through this and they'll be like, wait, this makes no sense. So then the next question is, why are you choosing a sizing that's not a thing? Is it more likely that a bluff triggered you to choose a sizing that's not a thing, or a value hand that triggered you to use a sizing that's not a thing? Here, I guess we could say a bluff. So, but I mean, we ran into, I mean, cool guy if he still jammed now, because like if we would overbet, which is obviously never a thing, I think he's just gonna find way less bluff jams. So good with our hand, bad overall strategy. Then we had this ace-5 hand. I decided to go for a small bet on the flop and he raised. It's not really a board I'm gonna see, but at a very high frequency. The ace-5 does sometimes bet. That's fine. He finds the raise. And now it's up to us. We will actually sometimes 3-bet the flop. Ace-4 or ace-3, 3-bets way more often. Those would definitely also be my preference, like king-3 of hearts or like a hand like king-queen. I think these make better 3-bets than ace-5. So yeah, that's why I didn't really 3-bet. I think 5-6 suited actually is also fine 3-bet. I call. Turn is a 7. I assume we just fully check because 5-6 is in there for him. He indeed went for the small overbet. This was one of the things I was concerned about, him turning over 5-4 or ace-3 or ace-4. That wouldn't be great, obviously. Let me see, there's still some 6-8 I think people can find, 6-7. Yeah, and this is kind of what I was concerned about on the turn, that a lot of the barrel range is going to contain a pair. Like I would not fold a jack for sure. 6 is 5, just that makes sense. Oh wait, actually I have to see. I would not fold a jack. Okay, that's then a little bit too loose, I guess. But no, I would probably not fold a jack yet on the turn. Ace-5 sometimes calls. having a club kind of goes both ways. I guess he's more likely to raise flop with queen 5 of clubs than queen 5 of hearts, and more likely to barrel queen 5 of clubs on the turn and queen 5 of diamonds or something. So if you hit an ace, like I said, but if I hit a 5 and it's a club, it's not really a problem, not going broke. An ace with the club, if I hit that, then yeah, I also don't think it's a huge problem. So I'm not really concerned about my suits here, and I would say I almost prefer to not have a club in practice. But the call is not great, to say the least. I think we should have just let this one go. Then this 5-4 suited hand with 3-bet, jack 8-5. We can indeed see that the 5-4 wants to sometimes check, sometimes bet big, sometimes bet. But like I said, this hand probably doesn't really have a big preference. I did actually want to go for the check raise. Let's see if that's a thing or if we just call. Okay, it just calls. 5-4 of hearts. This is a difference. If you play, for example, a single raise pot, you would much rather check raise 5-4 of hearts, whereas the SPR is smaller in a 3-bet pot, you would prefer to check call the 5-4 of hearts and check raise the 5-4 of clubs. This is a concept for you guys to take away. It has everything to do with the SPR still behind and the amount of times we will get jammed versus the check raise. So I was going for the check raise. Aggressive play. I still think it's a fine play. So now we went check. Turn was a 3. So now we'd much rather. We were actually also talking about ace 5. That I would much rather check ace 5. It seems to play it similar. Does it much rather check raise ace 5? It does much rather check raise ace 5 because it's blocking some of the ace 5, and I guess he would stab pocket 4s and fold that. Yeah, that's probably the problem. That's why it prefers ace 5 as well. So it's unblocking more bet folds and blocking more bet calls, basically. So check. Turn is a 3. We check with the 5-4. He now goes for a delayed stab with a very wide-ish range. We now actually check raise the 5-4, and that's because in position should step pretty linear with, for example, pocket 7 sometimes, pocket 6s, and we can now make that fold. I guess we sometimes still get some value out of ace queen with a spade or something. I think in practice, though, it's less linear. So I actually like my call. I think this check raise is a bit spewy. Call river ace. Let's see if we dunk. We do indeed dunk some hands. 5-4 doesn't really make it. But I did think dunking was a thing. Let's say it's the 6 of spades or something. We now dunk the 5-4. This was indeed in my mind. So I would say if the river was a spade, I would have made a good play. Now the river is an ace. He went for this half pot sizing, which doesn't exist. And this is a good example of the 6-4 where I chose a sizing that doesn't exist and he could read through that. And this is an example where he chose a sizing that doesn't exist and I read through that and made a good call with 5-4. Then we had the pocket aces, we raised. We had this 5 deuce 4 flop. Can we call it a mistake? Yes, I checked aces quite quickly, but aces, because it has more equity, because it has a gutter to go with a hand, you're much more likely to bet that than I think queens, kings, or jacks. So let's say the flop is 5-6-4, then we're more likely to check aces and more likely to bet kings. Because see, queens now bets more often than aces. So that's a small nuance that I guess I wasn't really paying attention to. However, we're playing 2 now. I don't know this guy. I'm assuming that he's not dunking, and people should dunk. So if we remove this dunk, we should definitely check more in position. So, but still, small pointer. Turn is the 8 of clubs. He went for that half pot-ish sizing. 1/3. I think here, actually, because of how connected the board is, I would personally just lean towards betting more 1/3. But like I said, he went for the half pot. We have an easy call with aces. More on the river that we had the question of what to do. And again, we see half pot is not a thing. Okay, it's either bet small or bet very big. This split makes way more sense also in terms of what your hands want to do. So to me, it felt like the half pot was very much weighted towards a 9, and that's why I raised on the river. 3-6, as I mentioned, you're unblocking the whole board, so that usually leads you to want to bet big. Whereas let's say we have 5-4, 5-4 usually wants to bet small. Okay. But yeah, if he bet half pot, we still call, but that's in theory. Do we even raise? We do raise versus the 1/3. So I think I played this hand fine. I'm still fine with how I played the hand. However, he did show up 6-3, so he put the hand into a small sizing that should have been in the big sizing. If that means that his smaller sizing is way stronger, obviously we should not be calling aces, but we don't know his complete strategy. So let's not draw unnecessary conclusions. Let's look at his queen's hand, where we were very deep. GTO Wizard has 200 big blinds deep sims. What we do see is we 3-bet a little bit bigger when we are 200 big blinds deep. So that's actually something that I did do. We were even 300 big blinds deep, so I went to 10.5. The out of position, the cutoff, as you can see, is going to be very ace-x suited heavy. Ace queen off actually is still in there. I was a bit more surprised. I would lean more towards king queen suited, king jack suited, ace 10 suited, and all these ace-x suited. Obviously, if he does 4-bet, which actually is a huge sizing in this sim, we just call queens. So it's not gonna be super accurate, but let's see if some of the concepts that I was talking about actually make sense. He should indeed bet half pot. This is something that I did mention, especially 300 big blinds deep, but he went for the quarter. We call. Turns the ace diamonds, and he even should size down to 10%, which already, because he went, I think, he went around 20%. So queens now, you can see with a diamond especially leaning towards a fold. And let's say we have 8-7, I was mentioning. Okay, 8-7 is actually folding as well. I would have probably be more inclined to call with, for example, 9s than queens. However, in the sim, he still has quite a lot of ace-queen off. Maybe for 300 big blinds deep, that disappears a little bit, and then I think 9s becomes better than queens. And for this last hand, it was the 10-8 off. We 3-bet pre-flop, big blind versus small blind. He checked. We went for a 1/3 bet, which we can do at quite a high frequency. This board is just very good for us. So I think range betting here is hard to get punished. So that's what we did. Turn is the deuce. I went on a ramble. Like if it's a spot where, you just have not much going on for your hand, you're going to try to look for some reasons to still barrel. I said that the 10 of diamonds was very bad. We can definitely agree on that. The 10 of diamonds with the 8 of spades, for example, is a clear check. And then I mentioned the 10 of hearts would be a great card. So the 10 of hearts with the 8 of spades, and we can indeed see that indeed is the preferable hand, because you're blocking king 10 suited and you're unblocking. For example, if we bet again, it would have been a sizing. Okay, actually, I would have probably went, I think 3/4 is fine. So he's going to fold ace 10 of diamonds, for example. He's going to fold queen 10 of diamonds, these type of holdings, okay? Whereas hearts, he's less likely to float on the flop. You can see he mainly folds queen 10 of hearts, but he's floating queen 10 of diamonds. So I think how I was constructing my range on the turn made quite a lot of sense. Let's say we have queen 8. It already matters way less what our suits are, because we're blocking the offsuit ace queen and the offsuit king queen, which are both probably calling the turn. So queen high barrel is definitely fine. You also have more equity versus a hand like pocket 10s, for example. So I think I would have constructed my range well. And then the river was the interesting point, right? We hit the 8, great times. We just bet small. I think we have easy call. Anything half pot or less, because then I think he can just bet worse. He checks, we have an easy bet. And then he went for this very big bet. And you can see that there's quite a lot of small betting, around 40%, which makes a lot of sense, right? You have a lot of pairs who want to bet small. You can see that pocket 7s wants to bet, I think 62%, is that it? Also 36%. So like I said, around half pot, I think that's a fine sizing for a lot of hands. But then when we go look at bigger sizings, so 87%, let's say that's kind of the big sizing, 62 and 87. They're not really that often used. Yes, if you have 9s, they're used. If you have 10s, they're used because you want to get max value out of an 8. That makes a lot of sense. And if you have a king, it's used. And it's very easy, in my opinion, to in this spot be greedy with a king, right? You see most of the dark red is coming from a king. And the bluff is a little bit less intuitive. 6-7 suited, for example, is the bluff. Some ace highs are the bluff. But actually, I think we made a good fold there on the river. I did, I think, mention like queen jack suited, like some of the hands that block queens, jacks type of holdings, that they want to block a lot of the calls for the big sizing. Actually, I think we made a good exploitative fold here. I know. I do know who V-Card Killer is, so maybe he confirms or denies in the comments down below if we made a good fold, or you know, if he just re-leveled, owned us, chose a sizing, and that I would be like, why would you choose this sizing as a bluff, and then actually turn it over as a bluff? You know, some next leveling wars going on. Okay, so that's it. I think the video overall was quite educational. I think it had a little bit of everything. We talked about some theory, we talked about some exploitation. And I think, in general, I think it showed good the mix that I use when playing poker of theory knowledge and exploitative knowledge. This is something that you want to go deeper into. We have a closing sale 25% off promotion on arguably one of the best poker coaching programs out there, the Mechanics of Poker, okay? Closing sale 25% off, running until the end of July. Guarantee your seat or maybe forever miss out. We don't want that now, do we? So I would love to see you there. Go over to pokerambition.com to enroll. Without further ado, I wish you all a lot of luck at the tables. I hope you learned something. Leave a comment down below, subscribe, like, everything. And thank you, and see you in the next one. Now, if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, and make sure to subscribe to the channel. Take a look at other videos that we've made. I'm sure you will like them as well. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. And make sure to join our Discord community so you can stay up to date with new content, new promotions that we have running here at Poker Ambition. And if you want to know more about Poker Ambition and our services, go over to the site pokerambition.com. Thank you guys for watching, and see you in the next video.